Hi guys, my name is Natalie and welcome to Clarified. Okay, so today I'm going to share a little personal story about my daughter's name. So for those of you who don't know, I am a mother and I have two kids. I have a son who's 21 and a daughter who's 16. Now my daughter has a very unusual name, and actually I have shared this story a lot, more so when she was younger. But always I would share the story one-on-one. So I never picked up a phone and shared it with a mass audience. But it's a really fun story, so I'm going to share it with you guys today. So let's start off with her name. My daughter's name is Spirit. That's right, you heard me correctly. Her name is Spirit. Same spelling as Holy Spirit without the holy, or just Spirit. If you're going to drink a spirit, for example, same spelling, S-P-I-R-I-T, Spirit, that is her name. So I just want to share you how I got this name for her, because contrary to popular belief, I didn't pick it. I did not pick that name. So I'm going to share with you how this name came about. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera. I'm holding my phone right now. I usually have it in a little thing that holds it. But anyways, so when my daughter and my son are about 5 years apart in age, and when my son was about 12 months or so, maybe 10 months, I remember I was having reoccurring dreams that I would have a second child, and there was a little blonde-haired girl. And yeah, so after maybe the second dream, I don't know if I had 2 or 3 dreams, but anyways, when I realized it was a pattern, that the dreams were not like a one-off, I thought, oh, okay, maybe God, because God has spoken to me a lot through dreams, a lot. So little background on me. So after maybe the second or third dream, I was like, okay, I should probably pray about this, because now I'm dreaming about a second kid. And so one day when my son was fast asleep in his crib and, I was home alone, I prayed, and I pray out loud the way I'm talking to you guys right now. I pray out loud. I preference to pray out loud, actually. I will pray in my head sometimes, but if I have an empty house, I way prefer, because it just feels more normal to me. It feels more conversational. And when I pray to God, I'm very conversational in how I pray. And so I usually pray out loud. So I was praying out loud, and I was saying to the Lord about, how there were girl names that I really liked, but they didn't feel right. And that's really weird, because there was about 3 girl names that I loved and still love. I hope I have granddaughters with this name. So it was really weird. I was like, how can I love these girl names, but they don't feel right? That doesn't make sense. How can something you love not feel right? So that was weird. That was weird in and of itself. I love the names Samantha, Victoria, and Anastasia. I was like, oh, and I still love those names. I still love the names Victoria, Samantha, and Anastasia. I love those names. And there was maybe one more, but those are my top contenders, and they just didn't feel right. And so my son's sleeping, and I'm praying out loud, and I said, Lord, there's those names, and I love them, but they don't feel right. They don't feel right. And I said, so if I had a girl, what in the world would I name her? And as I was still finishing my sentence, I wasn't even done. So I was saying the word her, right? What in the world would I name her? And I wasn't done pronouncing the word her. I was like, what in the world would I name her? And I was still having I was not done the word. I'll never forget it. And I heard God speak to me audibly, and he said one word. He said, Spirit. I was so shocked. Now, the funny part is, I was not shocked that I heard the voice of God, because as a Christian, I can tell you, hearing God in this manner, the level of clarity as hearing another human being, is extraordinarily low. We hear God often, but not like this. So I can count on one hand how many times in my life God has spoken to me with that level of clarity. So I do hear God often, but not like this. This was like a person speaking, right? So he said, Spirit. And maybe if I was a normal person, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I just heard God. But nope. I was like, in my brain, what now? Like, is this a joke? Is this, ha, you're kidding, right, God? Like, this is a joke, ha. God was not kidding. I couldn't believe it. I was not shocked that I heard the voice of God. I was shocked about what he said. I could not believe the name he just uttered to me. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, no. This is not a name. This is not a name. That's a thing in my body. It's not a name. I have a spirit. When I die, whoop, up it goes to heaven. Like, what on earth? Like, I was stressed and not in a good way. I don't know if there's ever good stress, but I was stressed and not in a good way. I was not happy. And then I began rehearsing your name, like, Spirit, this is my daughter, Spirit. Here's my son, Nathan. Here's my daughter, Spirit Broomfield. Like, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why is God doing this to me? Like, I was like, I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, oh, this kid is going to stick out like a sore thumb. So I was a bit, I don't want to say traumatized, but I was not in the best place. So I just didn't tell it to anybody. Like, and that's saying a lot, because I had a best friend. I didn't tell her. And my mom, who I essentially treated like a priest. Like, I told my mom everything. I didn't even tell my mom. Like, I literally was distraught over the name God chose for my kid. So 2 weeks passes by, and my then husband, one of his good moments in life, I said to him, we're on very good terms now. That, anyways, don't want to get into that right now. But so one of his better moments in life, I said to him, I'm like, yeah, I'm really open to having a second kid. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll go pray about that. So he goes to pray, and he comes out within a minute. And I'm thinking, what on earth? Like, okay, that's a record. I'm like, it takes me a minute just to like, hi, God, I'm so happy to be back in your presence. Like, I'm like, that's so fast. So he comes back out, and he goes, well, I asked God about whether we should have another kid. And he goes, and guess what? I heard a name. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, yeah, it's really unusual. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what's the name? And he goes, wait, before I tell you, I just want you to promise not to get on my case. And I was like, get on your case? Why would I get on your case? Like, and he goes, well, it's just very different. And he said, oh, and it's for a girl. And I thought, that's odd. Why is he telling me it's for a girl? Like, surely when I hear the name, I will know, right? Like, if it's for a girl, if it's for a boy, like if you say Mike, I will know we're having a boy, right? If you say Sally, sorry, I'm walking around my house, I will know it's a girl. So I was like, that's weird that he's actually like letting me know in advance, that it's going to be for a girl. Cause I thought, surely I will suss that out. So I'm like, okay, it's for a girl. It's unusual. Like, go ahead. What's the name? And he says, Spirit. And I didn't remember that God gave me that name 2 weeks earlier. I think because I kind of wanted to block it out, if I'm being perfectly honest, because it just didn't gel with me as a name. So I was, but even though I had blocked it out, like it was like fermenting in my soul for those 2 weeks, like it was brewing. So when he said it, and now mind you, this is only the second time I'm hearing it, I react completely differently than the first time around. I literally go, oh, I love it. And he was stunned, and he's like, you love it? And I said, I love it. And he's like, you love it? And I said, yeah, it's powerful. Oh, it's powerful. I said, it's beautiful. I said, oh, it's feminine. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, that's the most beautiful name I've ever heard in my life for a girl. And he's just kind of blown away because he thought I would hate it. And then we go sit in the living room, and about 2 minutes passes. And for those of you who don't know, I have a hamster who lives in my brain, and there's a wheel. And when I think hard, this hamster runs at full speed on that wheel. And so my hamster got on my wheel and is like running. And then I look up at my then husband and I go, oh, I said, God gave me that name 2 weeks ago. And he didn't believe me. He goes, you're lying. And I was like, what? I was shocked. I said, no, I'm not lying. I said, 2 weeks ago, I was home alone, you were at work, and I said, if we have a girl, what in the world would I name her? And I said, God said, Spirit. And he's like, you're lying. And because remember, I hadn't told anyone. I was like, I'm not lying. And then, because we were sitting across from each other, I walked over and I sat right by my husband and I said, can you tell me what motivation I would need to have to lie to you about God telling me our daughter's name? Like, what's the reason for me to lie about this? What do I gain? Like, and he just kind of sat there for 20 seconds and then it clicked. There's no motive to lie about a thing like this. And in this moment, him and I looked at each other in a rare, holy moment, shared holy moment. We looked at each other like, like completely floored, completely stunned. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have another kid. We already know it's a girl and we know her name. Her name is Spirit. And so that's how my daughter got her name. And so many times I've been when I was younger and when she was younger, we'd be at a lot of playgrounds. As a young mom, you go to so many playgrounds. And when it's time to go home, I'd be like, Spirit, let's go. And every time I yelled for her to come back to me, because I would always be sitting on a bench at the playground, like moms would look at me and say, what did you say? And I'd be like, oh, I was just calling my daughter's name. They're like, is her name Spirit? Yeah. And they would always say, how did you come up with that? 9 out of 10 people love that name. I had only once or twice someone was like, oh, that's weird. But like, people love that name. And they would always the follow-up, like, how did you come up with that? And it was really cool because I got to witness about the reality of God without being preachy. And I always answered the same way. I would say, I didn't. And every time I would give them a shorter version of what I'm telling you, because like, obviously I'm at a park, people aren't Christian. I don't want to go into huge detail, but I would just say, yeah, I prayed and I asked God and I said, God gave me that name. And so I just gave a very condensed version of what I'm sharing with you guys. And it was just a really awesome way that I could just witness, like, yeah, God is real. He cares about our kids. He picks out their gender. He picks out their name. He just, like, he's picking out their spouses before you're even pregnant. Like, God, he has destiny for our kids. He has destiny. He has purpose. And it's really awesome to be able to witness and effortlessly in this situation, because I never picked that name. That name was not a name. It would have not been on my radar in a million years. And to be honest, even the first year and a half of her, even the first year and a half of her birth, like I didn't have her till 3.5 years after he gave the name because it wasn't the right time. So me and my then husband, we kind of threw out the protection 3.5 years later. And then I got pregnant really quick because the time was right. But even when she was born, like, I was like, I had a struggle. I'm like, she's named after one of the Trinity. Like, ugh. Like, it made me a bit uncomfortable. And I had to keep reminding myself, well, God didn't tell me to call her holy, for obvious reasons, but like, it was difficult. I was like, ooh, like, yeah, it's just not a name I picked out, is the long and short of my story. But God told me to call her Spirit. And it was very interesting because one time I was listening to Christian radio, and one of the preachers on this Christian radio, he was talking about King David. And he said King David had a highly unique and unusual name. Like, now David is a common name, but back then David was like the weird name, because David meant something like loved or beloved. So it was essentially like saying, oh, here's my kid, his name is Love or Beloved. Like, it was not common. There weren't, like, in Israel, like, tons of Davids running around. Like, now it's common because of King David. And this preacher was saying, like, if God gives your kid a name that is super, unusual and weird and out there, this particular pastor was saying, like, that is to denote something special about God's call on that child and, like, their life. And I thought, oh, that makes sense, because King David had an incredible call on his life. If you read about the life of David, oh my goodness, what an incredible human being, Christian leader, king. But apparently his name was very, very unusual and has now become so common because of him. But anyways, all that to say is that, I just wanted to share, like, how my daughter's Spirit got her name. And I hope that encourages you. And I hope that if you're in prayer and God says something that strikes you as like, oh, this is weird, this is unusual, like, are you sure, God? Like, it's okay to check, like, we are to guard ourselves from deception, but don't be surprised if God has a different path for you that might not fit all the usual molds. And so I just wanted to share that story and just let it land, and whatever it speaks to you, it speaks to you. I hope that this encourages you. My name is Natalie, and this has been Clarified.